myself straight. All right, I'm ready. Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So do I click on this link?
Alrighty.
Okay.
No, you good. You good.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you for tuning in once again. This is yours truly, King Jacob, with special guest Miss Donna Taylor. We'll be talking about life after losing a spouse. It's a very heavy topic for her. So, Donna, I'll let you introduce yourself to the world. Let them know who you are, where you're from, and what it is that you represent.
I am Donna Taylor. As Jacob said, I am born and raised in Sanford, North Carolina. I am the mother of three kids, two boys and one girl. I am the CEO and founder of a mentor organization called SHAPE, and that is spiritual gifts, healing hearts, abilities, personalities, and experience. I also have my own podcast called Hot Topics with Donna, where it's honest, open, and transparent. So that's just who I am.
All right. So, we're going to get into this discussion about life after losing a spouse. And with this discussion, I know that you sacrificed a lot, you went through a lot, and it was a lot going on at particular times. So if we can rewind back
Okay.
to what happened, before you lost your late husband, like because you was taking care of him while he was sick, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so that has to be a lot. So what was that mental and emotional process like for you?
Well, the first time, well, he had cancer, prostate cancer. So the first time he was diagnosed with cancer, it was like I wasn't at a place to say, okay, we got this. I just didn't want to deal with it because I was in denial. I wasn't ready, to take that on because I knew, or like most people say, when you say cancer, you are automatically assume is a death sentence. And then so the first time, I just was like, God got it. God's going to take care of you. Then a couple of years later, second time around, I was at a different place in my life with Christ. So it was easy for me to, say, okay, this is what it is. I started going to doctor's appointments. And then this last time around, my faith in Christ was even stronger. And so it was easy for me to just do what I had to do as a wife, and then as the role of a caregiver.
Okay, so with with knowing what was going on, um,
Hmm.
you know, because cancer is something hard, man. So that's a really hard pill to swallow when you find out a family member, a husband, wife,
Right.
whoever may be that's close to you that have cancer. So mentally and emotionally, how did you process that?
Um, the first time, like I said, I wasn't where I needed to be mentally or emotionally because I knew who Christ was, but I hadn't, accepted him. And the second time around, I had accepted Christ, but I still wasn't where I needed to be, emotionally and mentally. And this third time around, I totally was like, okay, God, you have this. So it was easy. It was hard, but not too hard because my faith was at a different level. Because I in the process of him going through the cancer, I also knew that this test was for me as well because he physically was going through the sickness, but I physically and mentally had to go through it myself because I didn't pass the test. And so, as I continue to grow in Christ and continue to grow in my faith, that's why it was easier the third time around to say, okay, we got this. So, I went to every appointment. We talked about, you know, life after death, if you will, you know, between him and I. So, like I said, mentally and emotionally, the third time around, I was where I needed to be because of Christ.
Okay, 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 okay. And so, with you being where you need to be because you had gone closer to God, um,
Hmm.
how was that process for you explaining to your three children what was happening, and explain to them the situation on the third go round? Like, so you say, that was your third time facing those challenges.
Yeah.
So, what was that
Yes.
situation on the third go round, and how did they process that all?
With my boys, they wasn't my late husband's biological children, but he raised them since they were 5 and 2. So they already kind of knew the process, and and my late husband had children of his own. So basically we were always honest with them, especially me with my children. I can't speak on how my late husband told his children, but as far as my boys, I always told them like the updates and how it is, how what we were going through. And so for them, they were more worried about me, than themselves, because they knew that in the event if something happened, they knew that they had to step in to make sure I was okay. So I always told them, the updates as he started going downhill. So I always just made sure I, told my sons what was going on. So yeah.
Okay, so um, that's remarkable that your son stepped in and took care of their mom as they should. Now, what was the process for your baby girl? You know, as you begin to tell her what's going on, because I know that me and you discussed how much she loved her father, and she's definitely a daddy's girl, and so
Yeah.
you had to step in and really tell her what's going on, and just really be discreet about it, just to really guide her emotions and to the next level. So how was that for you and her?
Well, me and you've been knowing each other for a long time. My daughter, she
Or
has Down syndrome, so she loves Christ, and so it was so funny because she knew he was sick, and she always prayed for him. It didn't matter, she just prayed, for him all the time. And so the Wednesday prior to him going to the ER, I knew this was, it was it. And so once I dropped him off, I came home and I just, and I told her, I was like, Daddy's not coming home, and she was like, okay, mama. And, and so I had to explain it the best way she knew that I knew how. And it's just say that he's going to be with God because she knows about God because she's been in the church, so she knows that there is God. And so, and so that's how I processed it with her. And even in school, they asked me, how do we deal with this when she, talks about him? So, I just told her, just tell her like he's with God. So, that's how she, deal with it. She know he's not coming back. For a long time she used to say, Daddy coming back. And I, just like, nope, he's not coming back. He's with God. And she was like, Daddy's better. And I was like, yes, he's better. So that's the only way that I could explain to her because she could relate knowing that he's with God.
okay, so that's pretty remarkable that she used to pray for him every day. Like
Yes.
your
Yes.
baby is a prayer warrior, and
Yes.
not a lot of grown folks are prayer warriors. Shout
No.
out to her.
No.
Like
No.
that's remarkable.
Yes. Yes.
So wow, oof.
Yeah.
So
She
with
still
that
talks
being
about
said,
him.
they always say that. Say again. I'm sorry.
I said she still talks about him, and and it's so funny because it was like on Father's Day actually she was like, Daddy's better, and I was like, yeah. And she doesn't have the concept of time, but it was just funny how she knew. It's just like she knew, it was Father's Day, and she was like, Daddy better, and I was like, oh yeah, he's better. So it's amazing.
That's good. That's good. And so with you explaining that to all your children, all three of them, there had to be a lot of spiritual growth as you seeing your husband transition as you was taking care of him. God
Mhm.
really had to cover you and
Yeah.
put your mind in a mental and emotional mind state that will enhance your spiritual growth as well. And so
Yes.
let's talk about that mind state and and how that level of spiritual growth help you have peace of mind.
Um, like I said, I tell everybody, he physically was going through the cancer, but this was also a test for me, a test of my faith to see if I was going to trust God. And and like I trust him with everything that I am, even to this day. So the week prior to JT's, before he passed or whatever, we just had a long talk. And one thing I can say is like him and I made peace with each other, and we apologize for past hurts and mistreatment, of one another. And so we was just at peace with each other. And so the week that he passed, I knew the Holy Spirit, I just knew. And so it was just, I knew God had me. I truly, truly knew He had me. And so I slept with Him physically in the bed and at the hospice house for 3 days. Played gospel music. I talked to him, and I assured him that I was going to be okay, that, everybody was okay. And I know it was nobody but the Lord because me, if it was just me, I knew I couldn't sleep in a bed with a man that I've been with for 30 years, knowing that he's dying. So, and God allowed me to go through this, not just for me, but for some other women that's dealing with death of a, their husband. And so just being able to be there with him and just assure him that, hey, you were an amazing husband. So I was laying in his arms when he took his last breath. And so um I God just prepared me. He truly prepared me. And even through his death, I would not renege on God, because it is what it is. Do I miss him? Yes. Do I want him back? Not in the pain that he was in. Not, like you stated before, I physically watched someone, you know, that you love deteriorate every day. And I knew he just didn't want to live that quality of life. And so when he went to hospice, I didn't get to talk to him, that Wednesday. And I asked God, I said, I just want to hear him talk one more time, because we really didn't get a chance to talk, because by the time I got there, he was already in transition. So and that Thursday, God allowed him to just say, talk to me just one last time. Yeah.
Mm.
So
That's heavy. That's really, really, really heavy.
yeah,
So, with that being said, um, that one last time after you talked with him, and then God took him on home to be with him.
that
Um,
Friday. Yes.
After that happened, yeah,
Hmm.
that Friday, I know you had your levels of emotion and of mental and of spiritual. It was all over the place. So let's really talk about how you actually processed that when it happened. Like, cause
Um.
you cause you've been with this man for 30 years. That's
Yeah.
that's a very, 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 very long time, Donna. And so
Yeah.
with you
Yeah.
learning how to process that he's no longer gonna be with you,
Hmm.
you can't wake up to him, he can't cook for you anymore. Like y'all can't hang out and do things anymore, and it's just
Well,
you now. So how
yeah.
did you process that?
You know, I mean, really and truly, all I can say is it's just been nothing but the grace of God that He has really kept my mind. He has kept me focused. I haven't wavered in my faith. Um, just like the Friday that he was passing, I knew because everything started to shut down. And and so I just lay there, and when I say JT literally was fighting, because he held on for so long for Cameron and I, and so I had to reassure him that I am going to be okay. She's going to be okay. And I had to assure him, hey, you have done your job here. You have earned your wings. And I just told him, I was like, you've been an amazing husband. I am good. Just go, just go. And so, him and I, always had our own sense of humor with each other. And so finally, he was still fighting, and I just had to like get on the side and was like, hey, you need to cut that out and get on up out of here. Like, just go. I'm good. And so I end up playing a song by Tasha Cobb's You Know My Name. And I played that, and as I was playing it, he physically was drifting away. And then before you know it, I was just laying in his arms,
Mm,
and he 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 was gone. And it was so ironic, because when he passed, I got out of the bed to go tell, the nurses at hospice that he was gone. As I was coming out, they were coming in. And so I had been there the whole time, the whole 3 days, just being there with him. His sister-in-law and his brother-in-law came, but I stayed. My girlfriend brought me clothes, and I was just in a place of knowing that God had me. I never wavered. He had me. And I just thank God that, he gave me 30 years with this man, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we just made it work the way we needed to make it work for each other. So, and when he took his last breath, I was in the bed with him, And my girlfriend came, because they was like, you need somebody here. But I was already like, okay, he's gone. So, it's time for me to go home. But they were like, you need someone there. And so my girlfriend Jen came because, COVID was, strong, and they were like, you need someone here. So she came. We sat in there with him after, they cleaned him up and, dressed him or whatever. And and it was funny because I was sitting there looking at him, and I told him, I was like, oh wow, now I was like, you're really going up there with all the hotties. I was like, you get to be up there with all the hot girls or whatever. But you know I
Mm,
I was just glad that I was able to be there with him through death do us part, because at one time our marriage wasn't solid to say if I was going to be with him to death do you part or vice versa. But I thank God that, he allowed us to create a new love for each other, and it's only by the grace of God that our marriage survived. Because had we hadn't had Christ in our life, it wouldn't have survived. It really wouldn't.
mm, mm. So, hmm, you you really spoke on some really interesting stuff. As far as having Christ in the marriage and how it really survived through the levels of God's love and understanding, what Christ means to a marriage. And
Yeah.
so I would say that's a pretty high end topic in itself. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day.
Yeah, because
Which I'm pretty sure that you can break that down on so many different levels.
because this is the thing, Jacob. I've learned now, when we kind of fix things ourselves, they never work. And like before him and I both accepted Christ, we tried to fix, a marriage that was broken, and it never worked. And before this cancer came back the third time, we were literally getting ready to check out of this marriage. And people saw us, they was like, oh, they the perfect couple, we go to church, they just looked the part. But and I used to tell him, like, we're going to church living a lie. We ride in the car, we don't talk, get in church, and we be like, oh, hey, and then leave church and we go back the same way. And I said, who are we fooling? Because God sees us. And so, and that was the moment that we decided either we're going to do this or not, because at the end of the day, it does not matter what people think, how this marriage look. At the end of the day, we're not fooling God. We're not. And so that's when we said either we're in or we're out. And a lot of people, don't want to um, face their own demons or their own reality, if you will, as far as saying my marriage is jacked up. They want to make it seem like you got it all together. And JT and I, we was those people was like, no, we ain't have it all together. And it was just by the grace of God that
So
we made it work. So,
now,
and so the
Donna, I'm
title
gonna I'm gonna say this right here.
of
I'm gonna say this
so
right here.
what you gonna
You
say?
said that you was a little nervous. You was a little nervous when we talked right before we started doing the interview, but I must say that you're doing a awesome and a fantastic job. And
Thank you. Thank you.
you just said something that we gonna let the church say amen a little bit on this what you just said. So if I can dig a little bit deeper, if I can
Go.
just dig a little bit deeper, what I
Okay.
mean, as Reverend Aiken would say, I wish I had somebody to pray with. So you said that you and your late husband JT, you said y'all would go to church every Sunday,
Right.
in church, clapping and looking like it's the perfect
Shouting,
marriage, but
shouting.
when y'all left, it was the same. It was the same
Same way,
drama that it
same
was
drama.
before. So
Yes.
so let's talk about how people live. As you say, y'all was living a lie, and
Living
so
a life.
let's talk about how people live like that. How people live like that for 20 or more years.
You know
What
you
makes a person stay?
because like I was raised, you just stay, you work it out, you figure it out. And like for me, the it's easy just to be like, nah, I don't want to do this, because like you were raised with morals and standards, and I can only speak from me and my family. you know Marriage was very sacred, marriage was very important. But then, we get grown and we like, I don't have to put up with this. Like, why should I put up with this? But I knew there was a purpose for me to stay, or us to stay. And and even like when we would do Bible study or Sunday school, like him and I became honest, open, and transparent within the church, because we didn't want people to keep thinking that we just had it all together, and we didn't. And so I used to ask
Hmm.
God, show me how to love him again, because I had fell out of love with him. And so I needed, that I knew we wouldn't have the same type of love that we had from the beginning. So God had to teach me how to love him in a new season of our lives. And so when he passed, I was in love with him. And and it wasn't nothing but the grace of God, because if it wasn't for him, I don't know if JT and I would have been together at the passing of him. I really don't. So, and so as we were going back and forth to Chapel Hill, because, his cancer had got so aggressive. Like when I say aggressive, it was like aggressive. He was doing chemo 3 days a week, you know, and so then it started just growing, and it metastasized outside of his general area. So we already talked about it, and like before, I would have never discussed it with him, because I just didn't want to face that reality. But because of my level of faith, as I walk with Christ, I was able to handle it, and we were able to deal with it as a team, as a couple. And he asked me those hard questions, like, how are you feeling? What are you feeling? And so when we were going to Chapel Hill our last time, and I said, I was like, I just should write a book. And he was like, what would you call it? And I said, well, I really don't know. I said, God haven't given me anything. Before we even got to Chapel Hill, God gave me the name, An Imperfect Marriage Saved by Grace. So
Mm.
that's the
Ooh.
title of my. And so I am on my last chapter. And it's so funny that you have this topic, because um my last chapter is life after death, being in a lonely place. Yeah. So yeah.
Mm. Mm.
So and that's
So
we were in perfect marriage, saved by
Donna,
grace. Yeah.
Donna, you know how me and you rock. We've been rocking for a long time.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
this is what I'm gonna say. You said that God prepared you
Mm-hmm.
and showed you how to fall back in love with your
Yes.
husband again. And
Yes.
as he proceeded to transition on, you was in love with him. So let's talk about how God showed you how to fall back in love with your husband again and change you into a new person so you could love your husband properly, like he's supposed to be loved, and he could love you properly like
Yeah.
you're supposed to be loved. So
Yes.
let's chime in on that for a minute, because people need to hear what you got to say.
Well, I'm just going to give you a quick backstory. So when I met JT, he was totally a ladies' man. He was totally a ladies' man. And so, therefore, we got married knowing that it was what's the word? Like a trophy win, if you will, because I wanted to be the
Hmm.
woman that had the upper hand. He wanted to say, hey, I got her, whatever. So we go all these years and we never really had a solid foundation. We had a lot of lies, dishonesty, but as we continue to grow, I'm like, this ain't working. It's not working. And neither one of us wanted to say we're done. But then finally, I was like, I just need to say we're done, because he's not going to say we're done, because you know what? Because we want to present this image that, oh, if I say I'm done, then everybody else can be like, oh, well, why she want to be done? But then he felt the same way. If he said he wanted to be done, everybody was like, okay, well, why? They look like the perfect couple. So in the end, we just finally said, you know what? Either we doing it or we not. And so I used to always say, Lord, I need you to change him. I need him to be this way. I need him to be this way. And one day God checked me and said, well, what about you? How do you need to be? Because you're worrying about me
Mm.
changing him
Come on,
and
somebody.
doing all these things. But he was like, what about you? And so now when you get a reality check, from your father, it's like, oh, you see what I'm saying? So I'm like, oh, okay. So then I had to start doing a reality check on myself, because I was so busy worrying about him being perfect, worrying about all these flaws that he had, when God had to check me and say, what about you? What about your flaws? What about you're not being the wife that you need to be? You know? And so I was like, okay. So I said, well, Lord, you work on me and I'll let you work on him, because I can't change him the way he needs to be. And then the day I got ready to leave, I told him, I said, I'm done. We're going to be done, because I'd rather leave in peace than us not being cordial. And so he came back and he said, let's do this one more time. And so I knew if I did it one more time, I had to be heart, mind, and soul. I just couldn't be half. I had to
Mm.
be in it. And when I was in it, I was in it. And I was in it until May 29th. Yep.
Mm. Wow. How does a person move forward after loving somebody, fighting somebody, disagreeing with somebody, uh, having, raising kids with somebody, having kids with somebody, and but also being spiritually in love with one another, and
But you
and
got a
that
whole lot
mate
of
that's
questions
not
over
here
there.
anymore. Yes, right. So like, how does somebody like you move forward after you spent 30 years with one man? Of course, you had some rough times, some great times. You had some spiritual moments that y'all grew together. Y'all was spiritually in love, and y'all found God, and God worked on both of y'all together so y'all could become better people. So y'all union could be more sacred, like it's supposed to be. So, like, how does a person like you move forward, and what levels did you have to get to move forward after your spouse transition?
Hmm. Right, right. Well, the last week, before JT passed away, I was, getting my paparazzi jewelry together, and I was listening to music, and I was just drinking some wine. And he was like, I'm gonna have a drink of, wine with you. And I was like, okay. I was like, you sure? He was like, yeah. He was like, I'm gonna take a drink. And so him and I, was talking. He was like, just come and sit down. So we just had some real talk. And he was asking me questions like, would you ever get married again? And I'm like, dude, I ain't thinking about getting married. Like, we're in a whole nother different transition, and you want to know, like, if I want to get married again. And so, and I looked at him and I said, I just don't know. And and he told me, he said, if you do, he said, you will have my blessings. And and he was like, if I die tonight,
Mm,
he was like, don't mourn me. He's like, I want you to live. He was like, if you want to date, he said, you date. He said, do not allow people to put you in a box, because I am no longer here. So you must live. And I'm just thinking, yeah, yeah, okay, okay. But um, when he died, it was, I was in a very lonely place. And so, I, tell people on my podcast that food became my best friend. Food became my best friend at night because, when you've been with someone, you don't really realize how much they impact your life just being in their presence, or just even if we're in two separate rooms. And so now when that is all gone, it puts you in a whole different mindset. So I food became my friend. Chips became my best friend. I was eating 2 bags a week. And I knew that it wasn't healthy. But for me, that was my way of dealing and coping. And then I had to start saying, okay, Lord, you really got to help me, because now I'm going to keep eating and then I'm going to become unhealthy. So, and I just was like, wow. When they, how they always
mm.
say, you don't miss your well till your water one dry, or whatever, how it goes. That's a true saying, because even though he was there, and we had different schedules, but just not to have him there. If I walk in the room, I know you there. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm in the living room and he comes in the kitchen, oh yeah, she's there. And then when the silence is no longer, that void is like, wow, like I really didn't realize that he was he was all about life. Because even my oldest son, he was like, man, when I came here, I really didn't realize how much JT loved to talk, because we're generally quiet people, my sons and I. But
Mhm.
JT, he's just like Cameron. They're the life of the party. They wake up 6 o'clock. They on a 10. I'm on a 2. And so now here you are, and I'm thinking, wow, he really is not here. And so I knew every stage of grieving that I went through, and a lot of people don't know that, but I knew every stage that I went through. I um I can honestly say I haven't been angry. I haven't been angry. I haven't asked God why, and so for me, I got rid of all his stuff the first week after he passed away, except for the clothes in the closet. And my son then was like, "Well, you don't have to do it," but I knew the way I'm set up, I needed to do that. I needed to do that just for my peace of mind, my mental state, because I've seen people, heard people like they still holding on to stuff 2 and 3 years, and I was like, "No way, Lord, mm-mm, I can't do that." Because for me, that's just
mm,
like still trying to bring someone back that's not coming back.
mm,
And so
mm,
when I got rid of his clothes in the closet, because for me, I found myself not going in the closet getting stuff that I needed, because when I did, I would find myself sniffing his shirts or his blazer or whatever the last thing he had on, and I was like, it's got to be a better way. So I was like, I need to be done. And so one night I call my kids and I say, listen, I am getting ready to have me some wine, listen to some music, and I am going to start getting his stuff. I said, and they were like, well, we can come and be with you. I was like, nope, I'm going to do this. I got this. And so I did, and it took me hours, but Jacob, in those hours, it was healing for me. I laughed. I looked at pictures. I cried, and I took pictures sitting into, my sister-in-law, and stuff like that. But that was a healing for me. And once I did that, I was like, okay, you got this, girl. You got it. And I had an amazing support system with my girlfriends, and my sons just really stepped up to the plate. So I've been really thankful and fortunate that God has truly had his hands on me during this whole year. This whole year.
mm. Well, I mean, you've had a remarkable journey, and you've seen a lot, you witnessed a lot, you forgave a lot, you've grown a lot, you've acquired your spiritual awakening. And so, with that being said, I just wanted to let you know that you are a warrior. You are a champion, um, and a lot what you've been through. You know, I
Yeah,
seen my mother go through the same thing when I
but it's
lost my
it's all
father. So,
good.
uh, yeah, my black queens are so
Yeah,
phenomenal,
it's a year and
and
a month now.
the healing strength that a oh wow. So the healing strength that a black queen, has, and how she embraces herself to heal and enhances that growth of healing is on a whole different level. And so I definitely commend you for that, man. Salute to you. Salute to you being awesome mother, awesome wife, and most of all, man, being a child of God. So, as my saying say, people say, Jake, well, how you doing? I tell them I'm blessed by the best. So, you're definitely blessed by the best
I
for
can't
sure.
hear you.
So, we're going to, did you hear me?
Can you hear me? Because I can't hear you.
You couldn't hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. Th- Thank you.
Okay, so right now we want to talk about your
Right.
nonprofit organization, Shape. So I'm going to go ahead and let you above. So please go ahead and tell us about your nonprofit organization.
Right. Oh yeah. Th- Thank you. Th- Thank you. Yeah. Amen. Amen. Yes. Yes. What you say? You going in and out? Are you there, Jacob?
Yeah, I'm here. You can hear me? Yes, I'm here.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
can you hear me?
Hello. Hello. I couldn't.
Hello? Can you not hear me?
What did you say?
Can you hear me now? I said you can hear me now,
Oh,
correct?
I didn't hear you. What did you say?
Can you hear
I
me
didn't
now?
hear you. I can't hear you. I can hear you now. Yes.
You can't? You can't hear me? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I did.
So I so I
You
just wanted
keep
you to
going
tell us
in and
about your
out.
nonprofit organization.
Hello?
Hold on for 1 sec. Hold on.
I think he went out. I'm not for sure, but he's going to be back. You there? Yes. Okay. It all started from a
Can you hear me?
vision from God in 2017, and he gave me the name, and so I worked on it, and then he sent people to help push me and to help me get started. So it was a lot of work, a lot of work. I stayed up 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning just trying to figure out how I'm going to get this off the ground. But, my late husband and
Mm,
I, we did everything out of pocket because God wanted to see if I was going to be faithful, before I even became a nonprofit. And I did. And everything that I did with my young ladies, we never went without. And so the ages are 6 to 16. And so the scripture he gave me was Jeremiah 29 and 11. And so I just continue to build, And currently, right now, I have 15 girls. Some of them have been with me from the beginning. And I just added two more this week. They are not all African American girls. I have Caucasian girls, biracial kids in it as well. And that's why I chose the globe for shape because shape is for everybody, not just people of color. It's all about teaching them self esteem, morals, respect,
mm,
and to learn how to give without looking for anything in return. And just to, yes, and just to embrace, I can hear you, and just to be embracing who they are. Yes. And I can hear you. I can hear you.
okay, okay, all right.
Mhm. Yes. Yes, I can. Yes. Yeah. It keeps going. It keeps going in and out. Um. So, as I was stating before, can you hear me? Okay. Okay.
Go ahead, like you stated before.
Uh huh. Yeah. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Hello, Donna. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? You can't, because I can't hear you.
Okay.
Hello, live back at you again, the chat box. That was the lovely Miss Donna Taylor, and we was talking about life after losing a spouse, which is a very, very heavy topic. I want to thank you for tuning into the King chat box with King Jacob. I'm yours truly, King Jacob. And so we all also talked about, the differences in a marriage. What can be, what can't be, how people don't get along, how they dress it up, and still go to church and sing praise and shout hallelujah. But at home, it's the same drama-filled situation, and the cycle goes on and on and on and on repeatedly. And so, how do you find that balance where you can make it work? You definitely got to see God. You definitely got to have some spiritual growth, but that balance has to be as one. If there's no balance as one, and there's no trust, there's no love, there's no commitment, there's none of that. So, you have to find balance. But, I definitely enjoyed her. I gave her a lot of wisdom, a lot of spiritual growth. She was married to, a late husband for 30 years. And, good times, bad times, and for all the times, that they uplifted one another. So 30 years is a long time. So you can stay with somebody for 30 years. You're definitely doing something right. Not saying you won't have any bad times, but at the same time, if you can work it out, you can find a counterbalance. You can put God back into your union to make things work as they should. I am King Jacob. This is the chat box. Join me every Friday, 9:11 p.m. Through the chat box. So stay tuned and make sure you tune in for the Just Us show with yours truly, King Jacob and Queen Unique. Tomorrow's topic: does makeup sex make the drama in a relationship better? Meaning, just because you have makeup sex, is the drama still there? Does it go away? Or is the drama going to be drama regardless of what type of sex you have? That's live tomorrow, man. Just Us show. King Jacob and Queen Unique. Peace, blessings, out of here.